Hey everyone, welcome to Handing the Shame Back, a channel dedicated to survivors of child sexual abuse here in New Zealand and out across the world. I'm Gloria Masters, I'm your host, and it's my pleasure to bring this to you. As with all shows, we start with a trigger warning simply because I don't know what will trigger you, and it may be the words that our next amazing survivor shares with us, or it may be something that flashes into your mind. But whatever happens, if you are triggered, stop watching. Go to the show notes below and you'll be directed to some resource and support. I've got an amazing guest and he's a fellow Kiwi. I'm so pleased to have a fellow Kiwi with me. I don't get to interview them often. His name is Raymond Lum. He is formerly from Auckland, but he's in Christchurch and he is a survivor and a film producer. Welcome to the show, Raymond.
Thank you.
So what we'll do is we'll launch in with your story of child sexual abuse, as little or as much as you're comfortable to share. So I guess if we start with kind of how old you were, where you were living, all of that sort of thing, I'd be interested to know.
Okay. So I was born and raised in Auckland, back in, I'll say the year 75. Now people work out my age. I grew up, I was, back step further. So I'm the oldest of four kids, me, two sisters and a brother. 6 years age group between my brother and very close in age on the other end with my sisters. So yeah, as I said before, and as Gloria said before, I grew up in Auckland. We had a nanny that moved in when I was 2 years old, and the abuse for me started approximately between 5 and 9 years. You could plus minus maybe, or plus 2 years either side. I'm not sure. For ACC purposes, I just did 5 to 9. My memory is pretty non-specific with that. So yeah, not many men admit to this, but my abuser was a nanny, live-in nanny. She lived in with us for years and years. Wasn't probably until before my dad died when I was 19. She moved out. She has now passed on. Yeah, the abuse was pretty horrific. And it still affects me to this day, as in how I relate to people. Trust is a big thing for me. And I'm very quiet and I'm very observant of people before I can actually trust people. That's me in nature. I'm an introvert by just by default, I suppose, and I can go back there. But I've learned to be an extrovert due to the fact that growing up Kiwi, Chinese, people will assume I'm Chinese and don't speak an ounce of English. But when I speak, people hear and see that. And once people get to know me, they really think, yes, he is Kiwi. And the accent probably also give it away. On semi-related note, I was a slow learner. I don't know if that was to do with the abuse or not. Personally, I got held back at high school. Almost got held back at primary school, but I'm glad I didn't, because then, because my sister was a year younger than me, I would have got held back and people would assume that we're twins, but no, that wasn't the case. And that didn't happen. So then just slow learning. People thought I had difficulties learning. I suppose if I grew up in the last 10, 20 years, maybe they would diagnose me with neurodivergence, dyslexia, very low form. It's not the back to letters front. So I put phrases back to front and miss my words in my sentences. I mean, I speak clearly, right, but when I'm processing my brain skips. It's going so fast that it skips words. And then even I just did a presentation with my business course today, and I had a trial run with my wife last night, and she goes, "Oh, you've missed a word, or that doesn't make sense, Raymond." Yeah, so there's that, and my parents worked long hours at the takeaway shop in East Tamaki. They worked hard up to midnight, hence why the nanny lived with us, looking after us. Flipping it around a bit, other than the sexual abuse that happened, she taught life skills to me. I still hang the washing the same she does, get told off by my wife because it's different to her style of hanging the washing, but it's ingrained in my brain on how to do that, and it hangs better this way. And I'm going, okay. First time being married myself. It's only been married for 5 years, and I've got 2 stepkids. I'll talk about Bristol Crown. Bristol Crown was an interesting project. I got video interviewed, but my story is just told in word format at the moment. And the other day, I got a email from David, the project, and it's been taken over by another, not company, but non-profit organization, which he's the board of. And so there's a few changes. Hopefully that video will get edited.
So can I just interrupt you, Raymond, because you're saying a lot
Yes,
that will be really helpful to our survivors. Hello, survivors. I
yes.
forgot to say hello to you. Look, you're talking about having a live-in nanny, and the abuse went on potentially between 5 and 9, although it could be more, it could be, less, depending on the age it all began.
Yes.
And you also, I guess I just want to check in with you. Were you aware of anyone around you, as in your siblings, who may also have been experiencing?
Yes, but I kind of don't want to speak too much into that,
Sure.
but it
Okay.
did happen.
Okay.
I'm not mentioning names here,
Yes.
and it did happen.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So my next thing is, do you think your mum or dad noticed a behavior change in you at all? Like, do you ever recall them asking what's wrong or why you behave?
No, there was talk. I remember this clear as day. I think I was about 5, and I went to have urine samples and maybe blood tests, and they measured my head. My head at even 5 years of age was an adult size head. It hadn't grown any further. It hadn't developed. I just got a big head. I mean that in the lightest terms, because people
Yeah.
say big head. It's funny.
Yeah.
But there was no behavioral change that my understand of looking from my dad or mum's point of view. Maybe I was more quiet. I don't know. There's maybe signs at school, but we're talking about school in the 80s, growing up through the school in Ben in Howick.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And because you were quite quiet or introverted, as you say, it's possible that deepened or not. But yeah, I'm just interested to know, because children don't often speak of abuse because we're threatened or groomed not to. But
Yeah.
there will be something in our behaviour that signifies, something's off.
Maybe I was withdrawn. That's
Mm.
probably the more key thing. Looking at it back now, and she did threaten that don't tell anyone, words to that effect. So honestly, I thought nothing of it until I think it was until my 20s, and my sister said, "Look, I'm concerned, but you need to talk to someone." So I actually went to see her counselor, and then that's where the ball rolling from the ACC process started. I'm currently seeing a counsellor now, and I highly recommend it if you are triggered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. I guess the other point you raised too was, and I want to bring this up if you're okay, and if you're
Mhm.
not, then just tell me. It would be really helpful for our amazing men and women watching this, who, if we could get an understanding of what it is that blocks men or stops men from being able to admit it was a woman who sexually abused them. Can you talk us through why that might be the case?
I think it's the day and age of being macho and your feelings, stopping your feelings, what's wrong with me? Why am I acting this way? Um, is something wrong with me? And you don't know until you investigate your past to understand what's happening to you now. It took me a while. I mean, honestly, it took me to my early 20s to figure this out. And I've seen quite a few counselors over that time, some good, some not so good. My first one wasn't the greatest. She was out in retirement at the time. I won't mention her name because she probably um, passed on now. But yeah, I think, yeah, in a nutshell, it's men's attitude. Because you don't hear it much these days, even though there's the group that I go to on the odd occasion, there's probably about 10 guys. And I met one before, I won't mention his name, but because I asked, oh, who out of this was your abuser was a woman? Like two other hands went up. Okay. So I'm not the only one. Um, and it's just perceived that women are quite outspoken in this, and we talk about movements here, the Me Too movement, and then we're the men in this, remaining silent on the sideline. It's just again, my main point is I'm macho. I'm all fine. I don't have feelings, kind of thing. And until you get to that point and go, no, I need to deal with this because something's really considering wrong. Um, yeah, you just got to reach out, take the first step. Independent person, a close friend. You could start seeing a counselor and they may impact it for you, but make sure you do your research on choosing your right counselor or therapist, depending on which avenue you go.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I guess as we're looking at it, and thank you for that explanation, I understand that, is that, you know, these men are men, and amazing men, what they've had to survive. But they were little boys. They were little
Mm.
tiny boys with no power over anything. And
Yeah, yeah.
just holding the space for that beautiful little boy who had to endure all of that. So
That's a hard one because, say, for example, I've used 5 to 9. Or what's my 5-year-old going to say? Everything's tangible. You've got this leader that's come in and seen doing this to me, and I'm going, is this right or wrong, or what do I know? What's left and right? That's where I suppose that's where my mind's been muddled in a bit, and I see things differently
yes.
to now. I'm one of my I've mentioned extroverted, introverted, Myers-Briggs thing, but one of my things out of that is I've got a very judgmental thing. I like to see things on both sides of the fence before making a decision, because if you don't have both sides, you're kind of leaving left or right depending on the issue.
Mm.
Um,
So how does that leave you then with this topic?
very sensitive, very what's the word? Very controversial. Yeah, it, I honestly wish it stopped, but it still happens to this day.
Oh,
To be
yes.
honest,
Yeah.
yes, it still happens. You hear stories, and the Royal Commission, for example, at this point, it the last I looked into the whole thing. I downloaded all how many chapters and put it in a spreadsheet and how many pages, and it took them 5 years to make to do that report. But it's really empowering. The stories. There's a couple of stories in from the group that I attend to in that report, and one guy said, but I'm not clued up in the tech side, and I might end up helping him on that. Some ways I'm very good at technical stuff because I understand that, but humans, not so much. They've got this thing called emotion. I've got emotions. You've got emotions. Our survivors out there have got emotions. It's when we bottle them down that becomes the issue. And I am actually preaching to myself right now. I sometimes bottle them up with my wife, and it's not good. And we're all learning, no matter what age. We're learning. Yeah.
Well, I agree with you. And I
Yeah.
think that the thing too, Raymond, just to really, I guess, confirm what you're saying and add weight to it, is that, we can't heal without feeling. Feeling is healing. We have to feel it. We have to process it in order to make sense of it and overcome it. But it's just interesting because my next question was, if young boys who are adult male survivors today, like yourself, have experienced child sexual abuse from a man, it seems there's more permission for them to speak about that than there is for them to speak about being sexually abused from a woman being the perpetrator. I guess it's that. And yes, I guess I wondered why there was that differential.
Oh, that's a toughie. I suppose I only could speak from my nanny. Nanny was a female, sorry, and she had all the power, but she took my innocence away. I can't speak from a male
No.
because I haven't ever experienced that. So it's it's hard. I don't know what your question is on this. Can you expand a bit further?
Yeah. No, I'm not asking you personally. I'm a generic statement out there.
Right.
All the men I've interviewed, and I've interviewed many, many, many men, can talk about their abuse at the hands of a man who abused them.
Oh, right. Yep.
They really struggle to talk about abuse at the hands of a woman.
Mm.
And
I suppose this is my personal opinion, disclaimer. I suppose it's to do with the perception of today. Does a woman do this? Yes, they do.
yes. Yeah.
I should have added that I'm a Christian, and that's helped me immensely. I got saved when I was 17. And my dad actually was kind of against me attending church for so much, and he went behind my back and talked to the youth pastor, which I reconnected not long about 2 weeks ago, because he dropped by to my stepson's church and I connected. But my point is, where was my point going? I suppose it's just the culture of today, even and back almost 50 years ago, there was a culture of women don't do this. Women nest keepers. Women, you get labeled.
Yes, of course.
Don't get me wrong. It's changed. It has changed. The feminist movement has changed it. But still, it reminds me of a point. Okay. This is probably contentious, and this is, again, my opinion. So if women want full rights of being equal to a man, then if they abuse a boy, they should get equal treatment like a man. Now, it'll be interesting to see how long some women who have abused men are staying in prison. That'll be an interesting study. I honestly don't have the time to do that, but it'll make it maybe an interesting documentary in the future for me, from my point of view of being a film producer.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because we know that over in the States, when female offenders come before the judge, it's oftentimes the judge will struggle to deliver a sentence or find them even remotely guilty or accountable because they don't believe a woman could do that. So I
Yeah, there we go.
support what you are saying, but women who are offenders, we know that in the UK and the US, the stats are between 28 and 32% of pedophiles are women. So
Wow.
there's a group that do offend and that will continue.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, if they're sexually abusing children, they should be given the full weight of the law, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Equal to
yeah,
men.
yeah.
I mean, we all cry foul when we hear a man abusing a girl
Yes.
and then get X amount of years, say, for example, 20, and then the same thing happens the other way and then they get 10. Where's the justice in that?
Yeah, no, there isn't. There isn't. There
Hmm.
isn't.
It's a rhetorical question, but
Yeah, no,
yeah,
no, no.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I think society struggles with that whole concept that women could be anything other than the nurturer, as you said, or
Hmm.
the home provider or the lover of children and the person who raises the family. So I understand what you're saying, but I very strongly advocate for male survivors and female survivors who have experienced sexual abuse at the hands of a woman.
Hmm.
It's just as heinous, it's just as despicable, and it's a criminal act. Uh,
Yes,
yes, yes.
agreed. Do you ask me another question?
Yeah, so back to you, back to you. You know, when you think about what you experienced and the years that you experienced it, and then without even having to go into detail about this, you also had the additional weight of being the eldest child, not just the eldest child, but the eldest male child who back
Hmm.
then was given probably quite a lot of responsibility for younger siblings. So you had the weight of that and whatever knowledge came with that. But equally, you were meant to behave, work hard, and do the right thing because mum and dad were working so hard. So you can
Yeah.
see how for Raymond, there wasn't a lot of room for you to actually be a child or
Hmm.
cope with this trauma
Hmm.
because it couldn't be brought into the light because that's not what child sexual abuse does. It's not brought into the light, or it is really brought into the light. So I just wondered, yeah, how you managed that and how school was for you. I know you said you were a slow learner, you had difficulty
Yeah.
learning, but I just wondered, did school feel safe for you? Was it an environment?
School was where I learned and had very close friends. I still remember the name of my primary school friend. I should track him down and come to think about it, but could track him down on Facebook. I'll do that later. I won't mention his name. Um, so, as I said before, there was a year between me and my sister. In a way, she kind of took over the 2IC role because I didn't have a clue on how to lead personally. And she's an extrovert, so she's completely. And I've noticed with extroverts in general, they got make good leaders. For me, I have to learn it. I have to learn how to be a good leader, thing on the spot. It's very hard when I do like a film project, like the 48 hours, where you write, direct everything in 48 hours. And someone comes up with a problem, and we'll see several people come up with several problems, and I gotta think. I'm the producer, I'm the director. I gotta But it's a learned process. You got ABC. Okay, ABC doesn't work. Does it go to C or no D? I suppose we learned that over COVID, really, all these things in general. Post COVID, yeah. But going back to family life, um, being the eldest, I think I generally answered that question. And Jay, I won't say her name. Oops. Um, the my second youngest sister, yeah, number three in the spot. So it's me, sister one, sister two. Sister two is 3 years difference, and then as I said before, there's 6 years different. My brother and I. Um, she's introverted. My brother's introverted. The only one in the family is probably um, sister one. Yeah. So yeah, it was a different thing. It's like some people make comments and going, "Oh, you're the oldest," and they seem surprised because they might have met my sisters and stuff. Yeah, I think I've pretty much answered it.
Yeah. Okay. So look, moving forward into
Mhm.
like, do mum and dad know? Were you ever able to share with mum and dad as a child or an adolescent or adult what happened?
I remember my dad got sore legs a lot and would go and massage his legs. So I did bring it up with him, but all he said was look out for your brother. And I'm thinking, what about me?
Yeah.
So that was a kind of a disappointing answer from him. Um, Maybe I've been in South Island over 15 years. I remember having a heart to heart with my mother. Well, it was late night, midnight, 1 in the morning or something. And she goes, "Oh, I blame myself for this." I go, "No, mum, it's not your fault." And we're both crying at this point. And I said, "No, it's not your fault. It's never your fault." So she found out we had bonding then. It probably came to her head when the abuser was wanting to move into our house, and sister number one kicked up a fuss. She put her foot down, and I remained quiet. Yeah, shouldn't have in hindsight, but these things happen. You can't change the past, but you can change now in the future, improve yourself, get the right support around you. Yeah, I don't think there's anything to say else
Oh, yeah,
on
no, I was
that.
just
Yeah,
interested if you'd
yeah,
ever been able to share with your mum or dad and
yeah.
just
And I did in a way, but at the time with my dad, I was a little disappointed
yes.
on his response. Put it that way.
What he wanted you to do was to keep looking out for your younger siblings. So that's what my question had been earlier, is about what
Mm.
about you? Where was there room for you to deal with the trauma?
Yes, true. Yeah.
And yeah, but yeah. And so for you, now, when did you decide, like, what was your pivotal moment about getting help or recognizing you needed to deal with what had happened?
I think my pivotal appointment was sister number one saying, I think you need help. The stuff that said Aunt Nanny did was wrong. I'm not using exact what she said. I'm sort of paraphrasing because this was years ago.
Yeah.
I'm 49 now, so it's almost 30 years ago. Um,
Oh, so
so I
you
said
were about 19 when you decided
19, early 20s when
when you,
I think it was after my dad passed on. That was pretty heartbreaking when that happened. I remember
yeah,
that to this day.
yeah.
Yeah. But that's a story for another day. Um, so yeah, in my early 20s when I seeked help and initiated the whole ACC process. Um, I could go on about ACC and how their process works, but it is what it is. At least we get some money to recognise that the government there was this abuse. Um, some survivors want more, some want less. I'm contented of what I've given, and I'm blessed because of that, in a way. But the scale that the ACC news is quite interesting, and I'm going, well, in a workplace accident, I understand that, but when your whole body is traumatized, it's kind of different.
Yeah.
You're just in survival mode, yeah, and
So what, and can you kind of talk about, um, you know, what helped you as a survivor, start to make sense of this and overcome this? I know you talked about therapy or cope or, going to see a counselor, but is there any other, what would, thinking about healing modalities, what's helped you? What did you turn to?
I think my Christianity has helped me a lot. Going to church heaps, and I've been to lots of different churches and different denominations. Been through my first church was a cooperating parish. This helped me quite immensely. The support there, the support when my father died, helped me immensely. Um, and I tell a few people now to this day what happened. They're surprised. I remember bringing it up in a Promise Keepers Men's Zoom conference, and this one guy goes, "Well, Raymond's experienced it, but all you guys can comment on it, but you haven't experienced it. It's all theological."
Theoretical, yeah. Theoretical.
Yes, yes. Because yeah, my body's been through it, but yeah, it's hard to comprehend it from someone. They People can try, and I understand to a certain empathy level, if I can use it like that. But I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, to be honest with you, because it is pretty traumatic. But coping medicine to this day, having my devotional time when I get up. I write. I'm a diary journal person. Do a lot of reflections. And my screensaver on this computer is breathe. And when that comes up, I'm breathing. I have to remember to breathe deep because I'm a very shallow breather. And sometimes my body just automatically goes into deep, gets a deep gulp of air because it needs it. My mind's going a million miles an hour when I'm trying to slow my mind down. And okay, just take a deep breath. Somehow I survive under stress, but sometimes my mental health can go backwards if I have too many things on my plate.
Yeah.
Um,
So what would you
yeah.
recommend? You think about you as a survivor, you think about, what you've done to try and deal with it, overcome it, face into it and heal from it. What would you recommend to survivors watching who are still finding their way through this?
Well, one, if you've got red flags ongoing, why am I biting my wife's head off, which I do honestly do now? Why am I reacting like this? I'm doing a more perspective with female abusing me, not a male
Yes.
angle.
Yeah.
Why am I getting angry all of a sudden? It could be something else. It could not be sexual abuse. It could be something triggered that from your past. It's just showing up now at this point in time. Um, that's probably the first step is just realize you've got issues. Even your wife might say something. Why are you doing that? And then you've got to ask your questions. Why am I doing that? And then you've got to realize, I think I need help. I need to seek counseling. I need to see a therapist. I need to see a close person at church, a good friend at church, for example, or whatever religion it might entail. I'm not knocking any other religions. I'm just Christianity
Yeah.
is my thing. Um, so I'm open for people to seek help. Um, what other personal coping medicines? Probably meditation, but meditation from the point of view of my devotional times, not
Yeah.
anything like yoga. I'm not against yoga. It works for some Christians as well, but personally, I don't do that.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, exercise is another thing. Just to get out in nature when you need it. Go to walks along the beach because we live in such a fast-paced world now, especially with social media, that we not, well, I'm going to say it. No, I'm going to be blunt. We're getting attacked from social media. We're getting attacked from everything. It's grabbing our attention, marketing, everything. Even though I'm in business, it's quite ironic I even say this because my main thing is I like marketing. Um, but sometimes you just need to take some downtime. At least Sunday is a day of rest, or Saturday, which you prefer. Just take one day out of the week, go for a walk, coping mechanisms, write a journal, read
Well,
the Bible.
yeah, it's
Mm.
interesting you say that because it's that, it's that simple thing about whether people know it or not, we breathe differently when we're out in nature. We
Mm.
do. We just breathe more deeply and we breathe differently. But it's connecting with that, Mother Earth and just recognizing the beauty around us is enough
Yes.
to
Yeah.
help shift us. So I understand what you're saying about social media and the impact that can have. And I guess, are there any final thoughts you have before we close out today, Raymond?
Um, I'm going to be a little specific here, but I may speak to female if they think they're a survivor. But I'm going to talk directly into the camera and saying, male survivors, if you feel that you need to reach out, please do take the first step, because you can't live your whole life like, why am I angry? Why is this happening? And then if you've got a partner or married, you end up in divorce and you're just repeating the cycle again. It's an ongoing cycle. I'm working on my marriage. Don't get me wrong. I do not have the perfect marriage. I don't. But with God's grace, it's just helped me immensely. This is helping me. Um, just talking about it. And I mean, meaning to do this for a while. I had to put it off because I've had other commitments, and I thought I better not move this any further. Um, to my female people out there, again, just reach out. I'm not a female. I can't speak to that perspective, but again, reached out to your closest friend. I know you must have some girlfriend, or if you're that close to your mother, go talk to her. Yeah, first step, reach out. Someone's going to grab your hand and help you up
Yeah.
out of off the floor. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Raymond. Stay right there. Audience, it's always a privilege to interview survivors, and all survivors have so much to share. And what helped Raymond may help some of you. And one thing he said really struck me was that if there's some red flags, you'll see them because your wife or another person in your life might say, "Why are you doing that?" or "Why are you so angry?" or whatever. And we're not saying specifically child sexual abuse, but it could be. And again, there's a whole host of things we can do to try and make sense of this. There's the journaling, there's the meditation, there's the fact that you can go and see a therapist, there's exercise, there's so many modalities, and it's just about how will you know this is the right one for you because you chose it and you're doing it. So that's as simple as it is. As always, beautiful survivors, you are seen, you are believed, and I stand with you always.